Hi students, this week we're beginning our study of American history, which is very exciting. We're looking at the first half of the history of the United States. And in this video, I wanted to give you a sense of the themes that I think the course will emphasize, the questions that I want you to think about. The story of the history of the United States is fascinating, is unique. And the formation of a country that was formed consciously that we get to see from its very beginnings up until the present day. And it's a story of significant failures, but it's also a story of great achievements. One theme that I want you to think about as we move through the course is the theme of trying something new, of being willing to make a break from the past and try something different. This is, to me, one of the most fundamental aspects of human history. When we look at any other animal, any other plant life in the world, in essence, it's living the same life that it lived before. But with human beings, we see this willingness to change. Willingness to try and improve their lives and improve their situations by trying something new, by trying something that's dangerous, by trying something that's unprecedented. And we see this with all Americans simply because we know that the Native Americans, the very first peoples who lived in North America, that they too traveled to the continent. We are most famously associated with European explorers, and this isn't to minimize their bravery and their willingness to try something different either, but we should be aware that all the populations that came to what would become the United States do so in a breaking away from the past, in an effort to try something different. And we're going to see this willingness to try something new throughout the history of the United States. Willingness to try something new, a willingness to learn from past mistakes, and an ability to remain strong, to not give up, but to try something different, to move forward again. So that's one theme that I'd like you to think about, the theme of trying something new, of breaking the mold. I want you to think also about the theme of freedom. A significant motivation for settlers who came to the United States, for those who founded the United States, was the establishment of both religious freedom, freedom to worship in the way that they wanted to, and also the freedom of owning their own land and the independence that came with that. And the immense natural resources of North America make this possible. And so certainly in terms of economic growth, we're going to see consistent economic success among the inhabitants of the United States. But this raises significant questions. And this desire to be free, how does that interact with the desire to be religious? Is it possible to have a society that's religious, but also a society that's free? Is it possible to have a society that is materially successful, but is also free? So can you have a society that follows a particular religion or a particular sect of a religion without enforcing that religion on the citizens? And if you do enforce that religion on the citizens, does that make them less free? Secondly, if you're going to be economically successful, as your society gets larger, does that require some kind of government oversight? If you have that kind of government oversight, if you feel that that's necessary in order to become more financially successful, does that mean you are less free? And throughout the period that we're looking at, we'll see this tension between sort of a frontier mentality of the United States, rural individual farmer, and between those who wish to live in cities, those who wish to see a more powerful state government or a more powerful federal government. To them, that's a part of being successful. To those who are more rural, who represent more of a frontier mentality, the more powerful the governments grow, the less free they become. And in general, what we're going to see is that American society becomes both more unified and more free over the course of the first half of its history. Even though the government is expanding, that communication and transportation technologies are improving, that these connect the country together. At the same time, freedom and the rights of citizenship, the rights of voting, that these become more accessible to Americans. Of course, along with these discussions of freedom comes the challenges and the devastation that accompany European settlement. And of course, here I'm talking about the devastation of European diseases and conquest for Native American peoples, and the lack of freedom experienced by slaves, especially African American slaves, in the United States. And so we're also going to follow that theme. So we're going to follow these themes of trying something new, of freedom, of unity versus freedom, religious and government. And we're going to follow this theme of devastation and limitation. Limitations on trying something new, limitations on freedom that are experienced by some segments of the population in the United States. So as I hope you feel in the same way that I do, that these are really fundamental questions, fascinating questions to explore, questions that have deep relevance for us still today as we try and understand the history of the United States, and in understanding the history of the United States, understand our place in the history of this country.